All right, we have a couple of questions here specifically about the UN. How do relations between the U.S. Army and the UN staff compare with those in Iraq? Do you and the UN staff in Afghanistan feel safe? And I gather this summer Afghan forces are taking over security in 7 areas. How do you think that will impact the work that the UN is doing in those areas? What are your concerns and thoughts?
So if I had to accumulate the 3 points, I would probably focus on whether we in the UN feel secure. The reality is that Afghanistan is still a dangerous place. And the reality is that the UN has been targeted and has had 5 of my colleagues killed and several wounded. And we had an attack just relatively recently in Iraq when 4 suicide bombers tried to enter our own operational center. They didn't succeed. We were protected by the Afghan soldiers. The Afghan soldiers were the ones who shot first, got wounded, and then our own internal security was given enough time to respond, and our own colleagues to go into a safe place. By saying so, I'm trying to reply all 3 questions, except the one about our relation with the U.S. military, which I will elaborate separately. The writing on the wall is definitely that the Afghans are supposed to take over their own security. And we need to expect them and count on them to do so. There are infiltrations, there have been cases, but not massive ones. And second, our job is dangerous. And the more we are proactive, the more it becomes dangerous. But the argument is if we were under the sky and completely passive, we would be in a much worse danger, which is the danger the UN has had in its history to become irrelevant. So, if we have to be active, the risk increases, and that's why all of us are volunteers, including myself, and then we move forward. Now, regarding our relation with the U.S. military, well, I'm a little bit biased because, as you probably know, I'm a friend of David Petraeus, and you become a friend when you go through difficult times like Iraq. So I try to separate that, but it's not easy because friends are friends. But that makes a big difference because there is a lot of fair play and attention and respect, I would say, by the U.S. military at the highest level vis-à-vis the role of the UN. And I think that was proven also in Iraq. In a way, more active and more effective we are, the easier it is for the military not to have to do things that they should not be doing, and therefore us to be able to favor the so-called transition. But of course, when the civilian casualties take place, we do protest. And we did, and we continue doing it. And the issue about civilian casualties is a painful one, although when you look at the figures, 75% are produced by the Taliban. And there is a major effort, thanks also through the influence that our reports and our talks and our meetings have been having on the U.S. military in particular, to minimize to the maximum their own civilian casualties. But for us, 1 civilian casualty is 1 too many. And therefore, we continue pushing in that direction.
Questions?
Stefano, can I tempt you to talk about the relationship between Al-Qaeda and the Taliban?
This is you see, the shortest questions are the most dangerous ones. Have you read the report of NYU? You probably did. I would suggest anyone interested in Afghanistan to read it. There has been a recent report by NYU on this issue about the relationship between the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, as it used to be, might be, and could be. And I think it is an important point. If one day there will be, as I hope, a reconciliation movement and a political diplomatic search that needs to take place by probably inducing, facilitating a tacit, if not public, this connection between Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. If the Taliban claim, as they are, and say they are Afghans, they should be not in favor of any foreign presence, perhaps not foreign military presence, but certainly not being able to be associated with other foreign presence. And Al-Qaeda is totally foreign. I think that's a key for future discussions. And I will not elaborate too much on it. Read the report, and you will see that much of it makes sense, at least to me.
We had a question.
Lynn Yoshikawa with Refugees International. There's no mention so far about justice and accountability, and probably behind security, this is a top priority for Afghans. With so many, I guess, former warlords and those accused of war crimes in the government and in part of the High Peace Council, when do you think is the right time to deal with them, and what do you think the role of the international community will be in the transition process?
It is a constant reminder in our minds and hearts, frankly, that so many bad things have happened in the past that can not be put under a carpet. And certainly among so many Afghans who still remember what happened during the Civil War and what happened by warlords and through warlords and between them. At the same time, when you look at the current composition of, less this composition of the parliament, the previous one more. That's why these elections, in my modest opinions, are not too bad comparing everything. Many young, new people, and they were babies at the time of the warlord, so, 26, 28 years old MPs. But if you look at the composition of the parliament and of people in the government, you will see that the current Afghan society is very much linked to tribal and to power still, brokers. So if it was decided to go for this type of transitional justice immediately, we may produce a major conflict which will then be taken advantage only by one group. But giving up on it, forgetting about it, forgiving it, no. So to answer your point, and I think that's what we came up last year when the issue came up, is to maintain alive the flag of that injustice, of that period, and of the need of a moment of transitional justice, and at the right time revive it. Meanwhile, not allowing the flame to go under the soil. Otherwise, there will be no chance for later. But the timing now could be taken advantage only by one group.